All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the new location at the new office, which is over there. Here, coming to you courtesy of Arroyo Outdoor, arroyooutdoor.co. Fantastic place. By the way, we handle lots of wonderful things for outdoor stuff, including big ceramics, small ceramics. This small one, $45 before the summer sale. Yes, we're glad to be here. And Vivek Ramaswamy said something very interesting last night. He was on the Shimcast actually, the Shimcast show, Timcast, IRL. He mentioned something about concentric circles of community. And that reminded me of something, and it really inspired me to launch. I wanted to do videos every day anyway. I hope other people do too. And instead of hitting everybody over the head with the nature of order, why not pattern language, little bits, pattern a day. So welcome to Pattern a Day, and by the end of this I'm going to get to the big therefore of how, yet again, Vivek says a lot of interesting things. I wouldn't vote for him in a primary necessarily, but if he wins president, I won't be unhappy. So he touched the nerve of something that I think is very important, and something that actually opens pattern language with, and that is independent regions. So at the beginning, this is what the book begins with. Independent regions. What was a pattern language? It was written in 1977. Christopher Alexander and a bunch of other people put this together when they were working at UC Berkeley as to be an idea of known good solutions for architecture, for urban planning, for communities, for transit. And the idea was to come up with, again, solutions that would interact with each other. The concept behind this, so many things came out of this. The structure of this ended up inspiring the object-oriented software movement. So the device probably that you're watching this on right now, certainly the device I'm recording on it right now, would not exist the way that it does without the conceptual work of pattern languages. So, but what does it begin with? It begins with reconceptualizing how the nation-state works. A lot of people see Christopher Alexander. When I was at the GSD, the professors there, one of the professors, right away, I said, well, I'm interested in pragmatically solving problems in architecture through things like the methods of Christopher Alexander. And he said, well, Christopher Alexander's a reactionary, which I thought was very odd because I thought he was quite ahead of his time. But you have some people who look at these independent regions and they see something extremely radical because they think that it's like all this international stuff. I don't think necessarily. And now we're seeing a conservative candidate for president echoing these sentiments. Concentric circles of community. The idea that you start local, you have your individual, you have your family, you have your neighborhood, you have your community, you have your municipality, you have your county, you have your state, and you have the United States. That is something that is not new, that is not radical. That is the concept of federalism, that you're going down and having boxes and boxes, so to speak. I think what independent regions does is it taps back, it realizes that as technology has hyper-connected us so much, in the 90s it was a big deal to talk about the globalism this and globalism that, the world is flat, borderless, all of these things. Borders are more important than ever, and it should be about security. It should be keeping the things that are harmful away and letting the things that are beneficial to come through. and then we can all have our political arguments over what those things are. I think all of that is very important. Now let's get to the why and wherefore. This is always the interesting part of the pattern language. Metropolitan regions will not come into balance. This is a whole book of MIT problem statements where you state the question, you examine it, and then you say therefore. And you give an example, and they typically have a drawing, a conceptual diagram at the end of it. There'll be the metro train going by every once in a while. They've recently expanded that. I'm glad for that. It makes this a great location. So the metropolitan regions will not come into balance until each one is small and autonomous enough to be an independent sphere of culture. Therefore, wherever possible, work toward the evolution of independent regions in the world, each with a population between 2 and 10 million, each with its own natural geographic boundaries. That's interesting. It's kind of the opposite of the Sykes-Picot Agreement that carved up Jordan and Iraq in the Middle East, isn't it? Its own natural and geographic boundaries, each with its own economy, each one autonomous and self-governing, each with a seat in a broader government without the intervening power of larger states or countries. Yes, but are the doors opening for the opportunities of the future? Well, I hope that this has been interesting, and we'll see where independent regions go. I think that this is happening naturally, and it can happen in an orderly, constructive way, or it can happen in an utterly chaotic way, because we can have informal modes of governance, we can have a low trust environment, and we are going through a very, very important transition. So, here's to the future. It's going to be interesting. That's a parrot. I'm David Getson. Thanks for listening.